Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this meeting to order and need a motion to go into open.
Madam Chair, I move that we return to open session to adopt certification of closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries. Tonight, we have students from, excuse me, Ms. Golson has to read something. Sorry about that.
Certification of closed session. Whereas the Dinwiddie County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas paragraph 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now and therefore be it resolved that the Dinwiddie County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board. Dr. Elaine Pearson, District 1.
I certify.
Dwayne Walker, District 2.
I certify.
Barbara Pittman, District 3.
I certify.
Jason Brown, II, District 5.
I certify.
Madam Chair, 4 certified, 1 absent, Mary Benjamin.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, we have students here that are from Sunnyside Elementary, and they're going to assist, or she is going to assist with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Can you please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Turn it on.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amendments, adoption of amendments and the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That does carry. Personnel list.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the personnel list as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion carries. Student matters.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of the administration and long-term suspend student number LT-10/24-1.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Abstain.
It's 3 and 1, Ms. Golson. Recognitions. Sunnyside Elementary. Ms. Danielle Hawkins.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Danielle Hawkins, and I'm the proud principal of Sunnyside Elementary, and I'm here today with a few special guests who are going to share a bit about the start of our school year.
Sunnyside, no tricks, all treats. Sunnyside is a treat, no tricks can be found. Hear what makes us the best go around. Bus drivers are a treat to get us safely there. Cafeteria workers have no tricks when they feed us with care. Teachers are a treat, teaching us cool things. Friends help too with the fun they bring.
PE, library, music, and art, treats that come from the heart. No tricks at Sunnyside, just treats from the start.
Reading is sweet. Writing is neat. Math can't be beat. Science is social science.
Good afternoon. We are fifth grade students from Sunnyside Elementary, and we are a part of the National Elementary Honor Society, and we would like to tell you a treat we enjoyed at the McKinney Food Bank. My name is Isley, and it was a treat going to the food bank and helping others and being able to go feed those in our community, and it's a real privilege to be in the Honor Society.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I am glad that I went to the food drive and helped people in our community.
Going to the food bank and handing out food was a treat because I love helping our community. It was a pleasure to help people because they might need to save money. Some of those people might have been struggling, and I'm happy to help.
It was certainly a treat to help others at the food bank in McKinney, Virginia. There, we served all kinds of food to those in need. We also had the help of other Honor Society members.
Hi, my name is Skylar. One of the many treats of going to the McKinney Food Bank is getting to help a lot of people. My favorite part was packing bags of food and running back and forth to get more supplies like strawberries and chicken.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you to Sunnyside. We appreciate that. Now, our golf team. Oh. What's going on? Oh, smart man. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tortorese? Oh, I'm sorry. We have teachers and parents here from Sunnyside, so if you fall into either one of those categories, would you please stand? We appreciate your support, staff and parents. We thank you all for what you do in each of those categories. It's a struggle everywhere. Thank you so much. Mr. Tortorese and Mr. Bevel, possibly?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just wanted to come. We have another one of those firsts for the high school and our athletic program, and I'm going to let Mr. Bevel talk about that. But what I'd like to do is congratulate the boys publicly and tell them how proud that we are of them and introduce them along with Coach Rick Bevel, Riley Potts, Hunter Lee, Lucas Gordon, Sam Marable, and Tristan Boo were all part of our golf team that qualified for day 2 of the regional event. This was the first time ever, and I will let Coach Bevel talk about that.
I won't use the microphone. I have a coach's voice. Dinwiddie is not known for its golf team, obviously, but it's one of the biggest counties in Virginia that doesn't have a public course. So a lot of these young men, they took it up on their own and they got good on their own, and it's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. So I'm really proud of them, and I just wanted to read y'all a couple things that I've written down that this team accomplished. And first of all, golf is a game of numbers. Okay, so we'll start off with the number 0. That's the number of discipline referrals they've ever had. That's the number of parent complaints I've had. and the number of teacher complaints I've had. And these guys are they're not the entire team, they're just the 5 seniors, and they pretty much, played in the bulk of our matches, and the success we had was because of them. So the number 1, district championship, co-district champs, I think it's the first time ever. So that was first time we've ever won 20 head-to-head matches in a season, so that was pretty impressive as well. First time that all of our members shot 80s during a tournament. So at the regional tournament, all of the kids shot in the 80s, so that was just really impressive. And it was the first time we've ever finished in the top 6. Normally we're number 14. Out of 14. 2, that's a number of hours that Randy Bullock drove up here to help me out with these boys. So Mr. Bullock was, these kids meant a lot to him. These young men, they're good fellas, and he wanted to be part of it. So, he doesn't get paid or anything, but he would drive up here from 2 hours from North Carolina and just pal around with us. And it was just, I think that says a lot about these young men, that somebody be willing to do that just to be around them. 3 is the number of different medalists we had this year. So we had 3 guys that really played, all of them played exceptionally well, but 3 of them won tournaments, and those would be Lucas Gordon, Riley Potts, and Sam Merrill. And 4, that's the number of multi-sport kids we have, which, you don't see that anymore. I don't think people understand that a lot of these men, they played basketball at times, played baseball. A lot of times we just focus on playing one sport. We put all of our eggs in that basket, and I think we miss out on what high school should really be about. So, some of them a little later than sooner, but I think they had a good time, and it was a good experience for them. And this is the most important thing, I think, and this is the last number, so just bear with me. 5 of them, all 5 of these seniors, all have a GPA over 3.75. Lucas Gordon has a 3.79. Sarah Marable has a 4.26. Riley Potts has a 3.79. Hunter Lee has a 4.24. And Tristan Boo has a 4.28. The big thing for me is that, and Mrs. Pittman and Mr. Walters will agree here, you rarely, as a coach in high school, you rarely get a chance to have good kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have a team, it's a good bond, we have teams and we tolerate them and they tolerate us, but it's hard to have just a good group of kids that get along, and this is one of those groups, it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime things, coaching, and I want to thank the parents and thank you young men. Great job this season.
I'm hearing you say you might have to be smart to play golf, and therefore I didn't play golf. We thank you very much
Thank you for having me.
for that explanation, and what a great season that you all had. Now we have VSBA Board Academy Awards, and then we'll take a little break right after that for students that need to go home and do homework
And pictures.
and pictures. Okay.
All right. The VSBA School Board Academy is a platform that annually recognizes board members for their unwavering dedication, time, and hard work. The recognition is a testament to the significant role they play in improving boardmanship skills from all across all divisions. The Academy program offers a clear path of progression with its 5 levels of awards, each marked by certificates and pins. These Academy Awards are presented annually to school board members who meet the specific requirements, serving as motivating factors for their continuous growth and development. There are 5 levels. The first is Award of Recognition, which is 15 credits, and you will receive a certificate. The Award of Achievement, which is 24 credits, and you will receive a certificate and a bronze pin. The Award of Excellence, 48 credits, and you will receive a certificate and a silver pin. Award of Honor, 66 credits, a certificate and a gold pen. An Award of Distinction equals 84 credits, and the person will receive a certificate and a starfish pen. Tonight, I am excited to announce that we have 3 honorees. The first is the Award of Honor, which is awarded to Miss Mary Benjamin. And Miss Benjamin is not here today, but we'll make sure that she receives it. Miss Benjamin received a certificate and a gold pen. The second honoree is the Award of Honor. This award is awarded to Dr. Carrie Weston. Dr. Weston receives a certificate and a gold pen. And last but not least, coming in with the Award of Distinction is none other than Miss Barbara Pittman. Barbara Pittman will receive a certificate and a starfish pen, which is the highest honor. We have a few other mentions before we depart out in the hallway. The first is National School Lunch Week, and I am here to read the proclamation. It is a short proclamation. Whereas the National School Lunch Program has served our nation for over 78 years through advanced practices and nutrition education, and whereas the National School Lunch Program is dedicated to the health and academic achievement of our nation's children, and whereas recent research shows students are receiving their healthiest meals at school, and there is evidence of the continual need for nutrition education and awareness of value of school nutrition programs. Dinwiddie County Public Schools do hereby proclaim the week of October 14 through 18 as National School Lunch Week, and I encourage all citizens to become aware of the benefits of the National School Lunch Program and support good nutrition habits for their children, in the hopes of achieving more healthful citizens for today and the future. Next week, the planned activities are a special menu, lunch week take-home activities for all elementary school students, and a special treat given throughout the week. So each day, or at least 3 days out of the week, the students will receive special treats. So next week is National School Lunch Week. Lastly, this month is National Bullying Awareness Month. At DCPS, we are striving to promote kindness, inclusivity, and respect. We want everyone to feel valued and respected. Together, we have the power to make bullying a thing of the past, to build a better, more compassionate world. Yesterday, DCPS family wore blue for World Day of Bullying Prevention. October 14th through the 25th, we will have 2 Spirit Weeks. There will be in-school planned activities and discussions, and on Wednesday, October the 16th, we encourage everyone to join us in wearing and sharing orange to send a visible message to our community about kindness, acceptance, and inclusion to prevent bullying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll take just a few minutes break for pictures out in the hall area, as well as parents and students who would like to leave. We invite you to stay for all the excitement of the rest of the meeting, but it's your choice.
We came to make sure that you guys approved his retirement.
Right, I was wondering if this guy standing in the back, they weren't baseball people, but the 2 guys that were standing had on a black shirt and hat.
I think they were here with some
Okay.
I didn't see anybody that I recognized as being from that camp.
Well, those two ADs should be kicked because they know good and well that nothing goes until we vote on it.
That's what frustrated me because I thought, no matter what I do now, because
Well,
it's
no,
our
you don't have, there's 5 of us on the board, and if someone presses you, there was a big discussion about things didn't run smoothly, and that we needed a break and wipe the slate clean. And coaching, literally coaching assignments are year to year. And so if it doesn't go well with this, yeah, that's right.
So I drink full tea a lot, and yeah, great.
Although I know those parents have the best intentions at heart to be assistant coaches, I wish we could have no dads as assistant coaches. Man, my family had 3 or 4 kids on the team last year. And my son said they all deserve to be there.
They're good ball players. They are good ball players.
Yeah, but
it is an appearance thing. It's an appearance, it looks like.
yeah.
Yes.
And one of them was not a good student and didn't have some behavior issues.
So I don't yeah. So Timon was one of the ones that was on that thing. Timon is kind of a goofball. He's a good kid, but he's kind of he likes to goof off. That's one of the rookies.
Yeah.
I love seeing your faces on the front row.
From now on, those are your assigned seats.
Those are your assigned seats.
From now on, those are your assigned seats.
Who's sitting next to Mr.
Jimmy said it's his assigned seat for about a few more weeks.
Yeah. All right.
That's right, for a few more weeks.
And now, this next one is who's presenting that?
Tim.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure it wasn't somebody that was in the hall.
Oh, no, Brenda might be doing it.
Is Tim is doing it? Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed. There's some prime real estate seats in the middle if anybody wants to slide over. That's the equivalent of the back of the church. That's right. Okay, we are going to proceed with board matters, 5.01, a reimbursement policy resolution. Yes? Expenditures, you're exactly right. I'm sorry. We're actually at the consent agenda. That was my mistake. Okay, expenditure reports. Ms. Pearson?
I move to approve the expenditure reports as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from September 10th as well as September 24th of 2024.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion carries. Now we're at VPSA reimbursement resolution. Mr. Ampe.
Greetings, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm seeking board approval of the VPSA reimbursement resolution for $232,000. This is the grant that supplies us with the money for the hardware for SOL testing in every building. All our Chromebooks, the switches, and all the hardware for testing.
So we're approving you putting the grant in, or we're approving
The resolution with the reimbursement.
reimbursement? Okay. So we need a motion to approve the reimbursement.
Madam Chairman, I
Application.
move that we approve the reimbursement resolution number VPSA 2425.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. But first, are there any questions about that?
So we're being reimbursed for the software and hardware and everything that's being purchased, okay? And we're purchasing it with grant money, is what you said?
Yes.
Just leave that clarified. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Policy updates.
Yes, Ms. Pittman, some time ago, you had the first read of several policies. Many of those were just changes to Virginia code and changes to certain language. I believe Ms. Golson gave you a notebook with all of them in there. So we're asking for approval of those, as well as 2 additional policies that we did provide you with. One has to do with substitute employment. Once again, it's more about language. You can see that in the has a red version, and that's policy GCE. And then finally, we actually updated policy GA, which is now called employee conduct. It used to be called personnel policies and goals. And it just outlines what are the expectations of professional conduct for all employees, both inside the workplace and outside of the workplace, and that is policy GA.
So before we entertain a motion, I have a question.
Sure.
We have board members who would like, they have not completely read them all. It was rather lengthy. Is there a problem if we separated those 2, approved the 2 local ones, and/or gave us till the next meeting to
Absolutely.
look at the updates?
So you want to do the ones from the notebook and then just keep these as a first read and then come back at the next meeting to approve
That's what I would like,
Okay.
if the board's okay with that.
to approve GA. And so we would not be approving GA and GCE at this time, Bonnie. We will hold those as a first read and then just ask it. So we're asking for approval of the ones that were presented a month or so ago.
The 2 local ones. So I need a
Yes.
motion. How should that motion be made to approve? Are there letters associated with that?
Yes, there is.
Just-
There's a long list.
It's quite a few.
We're going to
You're
approve
gonna
the 2.
No, you're going to approve the long list is I think what which one are you trying to approve? Oh, you only want to do these? You want to continue to read the
two local
notebook?
ones.
Oh, so you only want to do these 2?
Which is GCE and GA.
Okay, I apologize. I had it backwards, Bonnie.
I'm totally confused myself.
Here it
So
is.
I need a motion. I think I got it now. I need a motion that says we approve the,
GCE and
Madam
GA.
Chairperson, I move that we approve the new policy updates for substitutes and the Board of Conduct.
that's GCE and GA.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? And do we need to vote to table the other ones? Ms. Golson? Yes. So I need a motion to table the policy updates from VSBA to the
Madam
next meeting.
Chairperson, I move that we table the updates for the policy manual from the VSBA.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for doing that. It was,
Yeah, I apologize.
it was
Yeah.
lengthy and everybody wanted to be able to look over it and understand.
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Golson, is there any new business? No. Superintendent matters.
The first matter I bring before you this evening is just a matter of information from Mrs. Powell's office. Every year we provide you with how many students that we currently are currently being served under religious exempt from our school system, and then also how many school students are being homeschooled. Currently, for the 24-25 school year, we have 81 students in our community that are religiously exempt from schools, and that's 11 more than our previous school year. Those really vary across all grade levels. There's no one grade level that's anymore. It's all around 5 in every single grade level. So we have a total of 81 students. And then for our homeschool students, we currently have 309 students being homeschooled in our community. This is a total of 30 more students than we had the previous year. Now, this is a little bit different. We are seeing that number stabilize a little bit in our community, whereas back in 2020, right before 2020, or during the pandemic, we saw a total of 70 students be homeschooled, and then it went to 33, 46, and now we're at 30. We are seeing, that number increase, not increase, but stabilize somewhat. Where we're seeing this happen is grades kindergarten through 8th grade. What typically happens is when they go to high school, they start coming back to us. So we see fewer kids at the high school level, and that is because we offer a lot of experiences, a lot of courses at the high school level that can't be offered to students sometimes in the homeschool environment. So very few of our students are being homeschooled. As a matter of fact, I think it's 20, 30, maybe 30 or so, 30 or 40 kids are being homeschooled at the high school level. The majority of them are being homeschooled in the other levels. So that's all just for your information.
Any questions on that?
What would be the guess as to how many of those students are in the same family? Like, how many families do you think we?
I wouldn't be able to give a guess, but I can find out how many families. I think that'd be great information for you to know, both on the religious exemption as well as homeschooling.
Because 300 sounds like a lot.
It sounds
but
like a lot, but if it's a
that has, like, 4
family,
kids,
right, and I know that in this community, we have a very strong homeschooling, there's a community here. So I can get you that information. I think that'd be great to know. So if Dr. Clay, you can help me to remember that. Thank you so much.
Enrollment update.
Yes, and so I provided you with a document just to show you where we are relative to enrollment. Christy talked to you about this last time. We are around 4,020 students, which is below, about 80 students below what we budgeted for. We have worked through the budget, so we're in a good place. Unfortunately, we do have vacant positions that we'll be able to use to offset any cost in the budget. But I do want to show you the attendance piece that's on the far right-hand side. We started at the convocation this summer with a little healthy competition between our schools because, you know, attendance is a big initiative on behalf of the state. And so we identified the schools that really excelled in the area of attendance, and it was Dinwiddie Elementary School, I believe, that ended up with the Spirit Stick for what they've done in the area of attendance. So right now, because they're all very competitive, and I know so they're all doing great work. I will say to you that everybody right now is in the 90 percentile for attendance. So every one of our principals is doing amazing work with this. But right now, we have 2 schools that are tied for first place in attendance. Dinwiddie Elementary School is trying to keep their title, and Midway is also tied for first place with regard to attendance. And then in second place, we have Sutherland Elementary School, which is just right there, like right on their heels as far as attendance. And then right behind them, Sunnyside, like they're all within 0.1%. I mean, like it's like so small, they're all like chasing each other. But our principals have that healthy competition when it comes to attendance. I just appreciate the work everyone is doing because it is very difficult. Attendance is not something we can control. It's much harder for us to control that, so I do appreciate all your efforts. But as I said, every school is 93, 94, 91, 93, 94, 94, 94, 94. I mean, everybody's like right there together. So everybody's doing really great work for attendance. We got to keep that going. So congratulations to everybody. That is awesome.
Safety and security.
And that's Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I gave everybody a hard copy since you hadn't seen this and had the opportunity to review it, so you could kind of follow along and then look at it later. I know we talk a lot about safety and security in Dinwiddie County in our schools, but I think it's very important. It's become kind of something that we talk about a lot. It's in the news a lot, and I thought it was important for you not only to see the obvious, we have a lot of overt safety in our school system, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And we're constantly working to improve the safety and security for our students and staff. And so I wanted to come before you today and talk to you a little bit about that and answer any questions you may have. There are 2 packets in that folder I gave you. The first packet is a hard copy of the presentation, and the second packet is the 3 referenced documents that I'll talk about during the presentation. Oh, you know what? Hold on just one. Here, so y'all can follow. I apologize. So if you skip, let me see. Usually Bonnie does this for me, I'm sorry. Won't do anything. That's all right. Well. That's okay. No, Bonnie, we got it. It's a shorter presentation. So Bonnie, if you can go one more slide. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, you may have seen on Facebook, because everything's on Facebook. Between September 9th and September 16th this year, we had a number of potential threats to our schools. And so obviously, when you get those threats, you take them all very seriously and you investigate each and every one of them as if they're real until you can prove that they're not. Luckily for us, we were able to, it's not that they weren't real, but they were very quickly taken care of, and school officials and law enforcement got involved and they dealt with them very quickly before there was any danger to any students. But I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what goes on after that. After you have an incident like that, it's a term we get from the military. We do what's called either a hot wash or an after-action report. So that after-action report comes in the form of, it's commensurate with the size of the incident, how you do it. So if it's something isolated to just your school, the after-action report would be just a school principals getting together or the administration getting together and talking about how they handled it. This incident kind of affected our entire community. It was 2 schools, possibly 3. So we got together as a staff, the division staff and the school principals got together and we did an after-action review on this. And I wanted to kind of share a summation of what we talked about and what came out of that. So first, the staff worked with the Dinwiddie Sheriff's Office. And by the way, I'm sorry, these are the things that happened that were very good about this, that we talked about, and we decided, hey, we did this well, these are some things we need to grow from, and then obviously the yellow are the things that we have opportunities for improvement. So the staff was able to work with the Dinwiddie County Sheriff's Office to quickly identify the source of the threats. These threats started coming in, we started getting texts Sunday right before church time. And by Sunday evening, they knew who it was, and they were ready to try to figure out where that person was and go. The law enforcement was going to go and talk to them and deal with it. Communication with the schools unrelated to the threat was delayed. This is important, and this is something that we sometimes overlook that we learned a lesson on because we have a very close-knit community. And we have brothers and sisters that are going to other schools. And when something happens at the high school, that could affect any of our other schools or the middle school. So we needed to make sure that we did a better job communicating not just to the schools that are involved directly, but the schools on the outside that may not be directly involved, just so that they knew the principals knew what was going on. So when they got calls from parents, they have information to give them, and we're all singing the same tune, so to speak. So everybody's giving the most up-to-date information. Thirdly, source of the incident information to the community was not clearly outlined. We did not clearly outline who is going to send this information home depending on the size of the threat. So if it's a small threat contained in the school, that obviously would come from the building principal because it's a very small threat. If it's a larger threat or something that is, all over Facebook and the whole community is talking about, then it goes to the school board office and they would send that message home. I think it's frustrating to parents when there's multiple messages coming home from multiple sources and they really are kind of confused as to what's really going on. So we wanted to make sure we outlined that in our SOP so that we were giving the exact same message the exact same way with, through a methodical process. And so we did talk about that a little bit. Central office staff, something else that was good, central office staff was in close communication with the building principals. I mean, there was a text thread going on, multiple text threads going on this entire time. Again, from Sunday at about 11 a.m. through late Monday night, there was constant communication, whether it be myself, Dr. Weston, high school principal, middle school principal, some elementary principals. So that was something we did very well, is the communication behind the scenes to make sure that we're all have all the up-to-date information. We're all, doing the right things to make sure that we're mitigating these threats. And then Lightspeed Alert software allowed school staff to quickly identify and address threats. I can't tell you. I'm not a huge technology person, but Lightspeed Alert, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, is amazing what they can do. And when I tell you kind of what they were able to do in this situation, it's unbelievable. So that was kind of the summation of our after action report. And obviously, if you're going to have this summation, you're going to have these things that come out of this, and then you have to have action. You have to do some things about it. You have to change some things, or you have to highlight the things you did well, but you really need to change the things and take the opportunities that you may have because of these situations. So on the next slide, there you go, next slide. I put the improvement matrix up here that we use. This is a scaled down version of it. It's much more detailed, but the category notification of schools unrelated to the incident, that's now part of our SOP. Anything that happens at our schools that affects multiple schools, automatically we're going to have one message that we send to all building principals, and that may be a phone call, it may be an email, whatever's appropriate for the situation, but all building principals will have the exact same message, so if they get calls, they can give that exact same message. So we have one coordinated effort to deal with it. The standardized source of incident information is established. What we did when we talked about it was, it was thought that we didn't really have threat levels, so a lot of times we'll have level 1, level 2, level 3 escalating up. We didn't really have that. What we had was we dealt with threats. We dealt with them all as if they're level 5, but through research and through some of these other continuums that we've talked about, we know that not all threats are the same. Some are transient and some are substantive, and you got to deal with them appropriately. So we were able to put together a threat levels and response management chart, and that is actually the first handout in the other packet. And if you look, looks like this here. Okay. And what it does is it gives principals a way to look at this and see if my threat that I'm dealing with is in one of these categories, then I know A, how to deal with it, and I know B, who's going to call home and tell the community and make sure the parents and guardians are well informed. So you see level 1 is a rumor, social media, but it appears to be isolated. That's a level 1 type threat, and the principal will do that. All the way to level 2, now it's on social media, but there's low spread. It's not really flying around the internet, which unfortunately that's how information gets out. So you have to just learn to deal with it. That would still be in the principal's hands, and the message would still go from the principal. When you get to level 3, now you have a threat that is this is basically what happened September 9th through the 15th. It's on social media. There's high spread. It's a moderate call activity to the school. People are calling, asking about this. Are you aware this is out there? That's going to shift to central office, and we're going to take over the community message. We're going to take over dealing with it as a division instead of just an isolated school with us just giving input. And then obviously level 4 would be the highest level of threat, and that would be from the division level also. But this was kind of a simple chart, but it gave the principals an idea of how they need to handle it. Obviously, at level 1, they would keep Dr. Weston and myself and Dr. Clay informed, but there's really not it's not necessary for the division to send home a message because this is an isolated all the way up to level 4. So if we go back to the presentation, the second thing was it was kind of unclear. Not unclear, the information's out there, but sometimes when you have a page of information you have to read through as you're trying to deal with a threat, it becomes very cumbersome. So what we were hoping is that we could make a flow chart that kind of simply gives them, if this happens, you've seen them before, if this happens, do this, if this happens, do this, if this is not true, go here. So we made a threat assessment process flow chart, and we distributed it to building admin, and that is the second page on that smaller packet outside the presentation. And it looks like this here. So this threat assessment process goes all the way from when the threat is identified, and then what to do if this threat is imminent and substantiated. Obviously, we're going to contact law enforcement first and foremost, but then we'll also contact school board office, and you deal with that threat. If it's not imminent, then you go to what we call a triage, which is the new terminology that they're using for threat assessment. And we need to make sure this is a substantiated threat. We need to make sure this threat has, the person making the threat has the ability to carry out the threat. But you start the threat assessment process at that point. And then it goes on to the actual threat assessment if you find that the triage finds that it is a threat to the outcome and response. Something that we do now that is has taken, I hope, a little bit of a burden off of the principals is when there is a threat made that's not imminent or substantive in nature, they can get 2 of the threat assessment team members together who can then talk about this, do an investigation, talk to people, and see, is this really a threat, or is this just somebody saying something mean, or are they saying something transient that they don't really mean? If, for instance, if someone was saying, man, I couldn't believe they said that, I could just strangle them. Well, that obviously could be taken as a threat, but that's a transient threat. You don't mean that you're going to do that. So those are the things they would investigate. If both people on the triage team agree that there's no threat here, that threat can be filed as we're just going to monitor, for later date. If one of them says, even one of the 2 say, nope, I think this might be a threat, then you go to the threat assessment process. So it has to be unanimous. So you can just kind of see there what's going on as we get these threats and as we handle them. What is staff doing? What is the administration doing? Who are they keeping in the loop? And obviously, what are the potential responses based on the level of concern? Back in the presentation, the last thing that happened right around, I think it was the 18th of September, right before we did our threat assessment, was the governor issued Executive Order 33. Now, you probably have heard of Executive Order 33, but you probably closely related it to cell phones in schools. Well, the Appendix A of Executive Order 33 and the information they gave out about it dealt with considerations for school safety. Because obviously, without cell phones in the school, a lot of parents feel their children are vulnerable. So they wanted to give an update on what are some considerations we may have for school safety, and we got a lot of really good information from that. One of the things we got was the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines, Interventions, and Supports to Prevent Violence. This is a document that was written by Dewey Cornell, who's this is actually the second edition of the document, but it was written by Dewey Cornell, who's a professor at the University of Virginia, and they originally wrote it in 2001 after a string of school shootings, and they started to talk about how can we deal with school violence, how can we, what do we do when school violence happens, how do we keep it from happening by looking at threats and the things like that. And one of the things that he talks about in there that I thought was fascinating that we're going to incorporate into our threat assessments is this continuum of threats. And again, it details assessing whether threats are transient, which is the lowest level, or they're substantive, which is the highest level. And it also gives you details on how to deal with them. You still have to deal with a transient threat. If a student makes a threat like that, you still have to deal with it, but it's just dealt with differently. Usually when you have transient threats, you're going to deal with that on a restorative basis. You talk about why you shouldn't say that, talk about, whose feelings that could have hurt. Then you may even have the person apologize and say, you know what, I didn't think that through. I wasn't really thinking clearly when I said that. Obviously, all the way up to the higher level threats. And then it talks about victim and subject safety, resolution options, and school discipline, or even law enforcement intervention. So we're going to start to incorporate that into our threat assessment, because I think it's important that number one, we have to remember that we're dealing with children. I think sometimes we automatically assume they did it, they said it, we got to hammer them. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they're doing it out of ignorance. Sometimes they're doing it, they're crying out for help. We need to really investigate why these things are happening. Now, we don't want threats to turn into violence, but we certainly do want to try to do all we can to help children if we can. You want to help children get through this instead of just punishing them for this. Sometimes punishment is necessary. I'm not going to say it's not, because sometimes if you violate the law, there's going to be a punishment. But I think it's important that we work hard to help children instead of just automatically punish them for what they're doing. So anyway, that's in that. And if you ever wanted to discuss that further, this book is fascinating that he wrote, and it's 2 chapters or 2 editions of it. Number 2 there is the process assistance. This is something that's usually going on prior to us becoming aware of a threat, but if you haven't ever seen Lightspeed Alert, it's something that I think we put in a few years ago, and I really didn't have a lot of dealings with it until the last 3 or 4 years. But this is a proactive safety software that monitors student online activity. Now, this monitors student online activity if they're logged into one of our Google accounts, no matter what device they're on. If they're in a Dinwiddie County Public Schools Google account, if they're on a Dinwiddie County device, no matter what they're logged into, doesn't matter if they're looking at AOL or whatever, don't even know if there's AOL anymore, but if they're looking at whatever website on our device, it monitors them. It monitors any email activity, any Google Sheets, anything they do, anything they type in there, anything they search on the web, it's monitoring. AI technology identifies the concerning indicators or alerts, and then it uses keywords to instantly notify school staff about possible self-harm, bullying, explicit content, violence, drugs, weapons. It's to the point where it's noticing or picking up if somebody says KMS, which is kill myself, which, I didn't know that until, 2 years ago. But if they type that, those combination of letters, it triggers. After they get that, they flag these items, and then they are human reviewed. And the human looks at them to make sure that they're not a part of maybe somebody copied a book or something, or somebody searched a book or is reading a book, or the one that was very popular before the human review was a Roman statue that looked as if it was a nude person. Well, obviously they're doing research, or talking about World War II when it's talking about violence and guns. So the human review is important. And if the human review flags this as imminent, you get a crisis escalation list. And this crisis escalation list, they start calling. They start at the principal, and they work their way until they get to Dr. Weston, until they they verbally talk to someone and hear someone's voice and let them know that this is a threat. Now, before that, which is 95% of them, it's an email, hey, this child put this, said, something they shouldn't have said. They looked at something they shouldn't have looked at. You get an email, the principal deals with it. The principal and the SRO get it at their school. They deal with it. A lot of times they're dealing with it before the child's even logged off the computer. We had a student a couple weeks ago type the word bomb into a Google Doc and erased it, typed it and then erased it. Before they got out of that class, there was somebody standing in their classroom doorway wanting to know why they typed the word bomb into the Google Doc. So it's that good and it's that quick, and I've been very impressed with it. So I think it's something that it helps us a lot to catch these threats before they materialize. Next is, you probably are familiar with the Raptor visitor management system that we use. If you visit one of our schools when their school is in session and there's students in the building, you have to give them your driver's license. They put you through the Raptor system. The Raptor system is going to check you against the sex offenders database to make sure you're not on it, and it's all 50 states. And then we can also put, if someone's been unruly at a school or something and we ask them not to come back, we can put it on there and it'll also flag that. But this is something that also, it gives them a badge that they have to wear, so that when they're walking around our school, there's a picture ID on their shirt, which is a sticker badge. All right, next one, thanks. Behavior Threat Assessment and Management, which is BTAM. This is something that we've started doing a lot of training with the Department of Criminal Justice Services. We do a triennial DCJS threat assessment full training. It's a full day training for threat assessment for all school administrators and anybody involved in the threat assessment process. And then annually, we're going to do a threat assessment refresher training. So, you'll do full training 1 year, and then the next 2 years we'll do a refresher, and then the third year you do a full training. This has become important because, again, it's an opportunity. It's kind of like a tabletop exercise. It's an opportunity to sit around and talk about threat assessments, share how they handled things, what they could have done different, but also any new terminology, any new things that are going on in the threat assessment world. We also are going to incorporate the principles from the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines, which is from Executive Order 33. And then the assessment information and data entry and storage is housed in Virginia IEP Online. So anytime we do a threat assessment, the threat assessment team enters this information into Virginia IEP Online, and it can be reviewed and added to at later dates. Crisis management plans, which I came before you in August, and we had all of our crisis management plans updated and reviewed and made sure that they were still matching what we're doing and then approved by the school board. So you can go to the next one. Now I'm going to go through these because I don't really want to bore you with all but I wanted you to see what we have in our schools working behind the scenes. We have two types of cameras in our schools. We have IP cameras, which are Internet Protocol cameras, which are hooked up to the network. And those are network-based, web-based, and you can monitor them from desktops at remote locations. And we also have analog cameras, and an analog camera is old school. It's hooked up with a coaxial to the network, and then you can still monitor those. There's not as good a quality. We have 353 IP cameras division-wide in our schools. So we can cover most of the legal areas in our schools. We don't film in restrooms or locker rooms, and we don't film in classrooms, but we film every other area. The 48 analog cameras are due to be updated this summer, pending grant approval.
Are they in one specific building or?
A lot of them are in Sutherland Elementary. Yeah. So we're going to try to get them changed out just because they're not as good at quality. They have a lot more problems, and when they do break, they can't be fixed. They have to be replaced. So we might as well replace them. With these cameras, authorized building administrators can watch them in real time at any time, but can also watch up to 30 days review of them. And so as long as you get it within 30 days, you can go back and review. And we've done it many times to help us with situations, whether it be an investigation of something. The principals probably use them daily to deal with situations that happen in their schools. Hooked to those, we also at the middle school and high school have vape detectors, which is hooked to this Genetech system. And, that helps some, but obviously when the detector goes off, the kids all run out of the bathroom. So, but we're able to at least keep them from, that's the goal, right, is to keep them from vaping. And then we can go to next three, I'm sorry. This one I wanted to talk about a little bit just so you knew. We have 7 burglary alarm systems in our schools, so every school but Historic Southside. And the reason we don't use that one is at Historic Southside is because we have 2 entities there, and it would be going off constantly, whether it be our Encompass, whether it be Rivermont, or whether it be people who are using it on the nights and weekends for basketball. We also have security vestibules on most schools, currently operational, DHS, DMS, Sutherland Elementary, Dinwiddie Elementary, Midway, and Sunnyside. And Midway and Sunnyside are going to be upgraded in the future. Sunnyside, hopefully this summer with grant money. We're going to make it so it's functional. And then Midway's, eventually, we're going to make it so that it's on the correct side of the hallway and not across the hall from the main office. Southside Elementary is going to get their vestibule this summer with their upgrades, and it's the last school that doesn't have a vestibule because all our other schools have one. It's just maybe not ideal, but they have one. Interior doors, we're in the process now of putting key card access on all of our interior doors, which means classrooms. Currently operational DMS, Midway, and Dinwiddie Elementary. All 3 have interior access doors. Dinwiddie Elementary and Midway got theirs based on vulnerability. We did a vulnerability assessment, a very quick one to see who needs it the most right now. And it was Dinwiddie Elementary at the time didn't have a vestibule, and Midway at the time, or still today, if you get in Midway, you can be upstairs before they know you're in the school. So that's important to have the key card access to all the doors. What that basically means is when I close the door as a teacher, it's locked. And unless I go over there and open it, you can't get in unless you have a key card. So we're also going to have installation scheduled, by the summer of 2027, all of our schools, including Sutherland and Dinwiddie High School, will have interior key card access to all the doors, which is going to be big for us because I think we'd be way ahead of the curve there. I did see just the other day that Chesterfield is still trying to complete vestibules in all their schools, and we have them in ours. So, some action steps, some things that we're trying to put in place here to further. We're always looking to take steps and make sure that we're keeping the schools more secure. Immediate implementation items, random pattern wanding at DHS and DMS. And what I mean by that is as buses come in, you may pick every 3rd bus and just wand the kids on that bus. As kids come in the front door, you pick a number every day or every once a week, and number 9. So every 9th kid you wand. And that's just an opportunity to make sure that children know that we're looking out for safety, but also give people that, look, you're not going to be able to get things into our building easily because we don't want you to get things into our building that can harm other people. Incorporation of the standard response protocol. Now, this is the 3rd sheet on the other handout. And so what we're trying to do is we're using a standard response protocol to alleviate confusion when we have situations in our schools. if you've been in school in the last, Ms. Pittman, I know we used to do it when you were the principal, the medical lockdown. They stopped using the term medical lockdown because that term lockdown gives people they start going into a flurry. Do I need to hide? What do I do? So now we use the word hold. So if you have a medical situation in your school, you will hold for a medical situation, or you will hold for a maintenance operation or something that's going on in the school. Kids will stay in their classroom. They'll stay engaged in learning. The teacher will continue to teach. They'll just hold people in place. The next is secure. If you're going to secure the building, again, everybody comes inside. Kids come in from recess, PE classes come in. All that exterior doors are locked, and the building is secure. Normal activity goes on. Good example of this, if there's a police chase on Courthouse Road or something like that, you may secure the building to keep everybody safe. Now, the third one is lockdown. Now, lockdown, the only time you use that if there's imminent danger in your building. You know, something's going to happen that someone is in imminent danger, and we need to make sure everybody is safe. This one is, locks, lights, out of sight. Everybody is away, out of sight, to make sure that there's no danger to anyone. Something that I did ask principals to do during lockdown drills is go around knock on some doors. See if people will answer, because obviously, if you're in a lockdown situation, you don't open the door for anybody. You don't answer to anybody. In a real lockdown situation, the only time that you would come out of that room is when someone comes into the room, whether it be the police or whether it be a principal, and face-to-face tells you that you're no longer in a lockdown. Any announcements over the intercom are invalid. Any principal coming to the door knocking saying, hey, I need you to come out of the lockdown, it's invalid. And so we're trying to get them to understand that you don't ever answer the door, you don't ever answer when they knock. It's like no one's in that room until you have a face-to-face interaction with someone who's law enforcement or administration. So that's the lockdown. The next is evacuate. Obviously, there's times where we have to evacuate the school, and I'll have more about that later, but we're working on that situation because we want, if Lord, I hope it never happens, but if something does happen that we have to evacuate our school, we want to make sure we're prepared, and we want to make sure we keep everybody as safe as possible, and then get them reunified back with their parents at the end of that. And then the last one is very standard, which all have been through the shelter in place, whether it be for severe weather or things like that. So that's the standard response protocol that we're going to start utilizing, just to keep it simple and to make sure that no one's confused during these drills. Some considerations, some things that we've talked about. Oh, excuse me, I skipped long-term. Some long-term implementation. Our security hardware upgrades, we're going to continue to do those things, and I'm just on the second bullet there on number 4. School crisis evacuation and reunification drills. Within the next month and a half, all schools will have done a reunification drill with their staff, and our high school and middle school are going to do their first one on October 21st. And so it's a big drill. It's a big thing. We're going to have Chief Kistner from the Fire and EMS is going to be involved. We're going to have the transportation involved. Everybody's going to be involved. We're going to do it just like we're doing an evacuation and reunification drill, except for there's not going to be kids. It's just going to be the adults getting in place and knowing what to do. We will get to the point where we're going to do it with kids, but we're going to start, baby steps. Facility security assessments. We did send one of our SSOs earlier this month or late last month to the DCPS clinic on how to assess your facilities to make sure they're secure. We're getting to the point where all of the top level security, all the surface security is in place. Now we got to get to the point where we're doing the other things, the extra mile, going the extra mile to make sure our facilities are secure. And so when SSO Bresco and I are going to get together and talk about that so we can start working on that at the beginning of next year, start working on other forms of security that we can put in place in our schools. Some considerations, some things that we've talked about, the Raptor Technologies reunification management software. It's very pricey, but it does a really good job of organizing this reunification. It's kind of like a generator, though, because you buy it, you use it, and you hope you never need it. And that's kind of what this is. You want to buy this technology in case you have to do a reunification, but you hope you never have to. So we'd like to look into buying it. It is expensive, but I think it would be worthwhile if we ever had to use it. The next is the Open Gate Weapons Detection System for public events. You may have seen on the news, Chesterfield County is looking into this weapons detection system. And we've talked about it in a number of ways. They are expensive. They are somewhat reliable. I've been to clinics where they showed you how to defeat them easily. But I think that it's important in public events when you don't know who's coming into your building that you're able to manage that. So we are going to continue to discuss that and have talks about that. And hopefully at some point we will be able to do that. It's very similar to wanding at the football and basketball games, but this is a much more sophisticated system where the people just walk through and they don't have to take anything out of their pockets and things like that. Some operational obstacles, some things that are going to keep us from meeting these goals. Hopefully not, but they may. The DCJS grant expirations. They announced earlier this year that the school security officer and school resource officer grants are going to expire, so they're not going to renew any of them, which means that we're going to be on the hook for paying for this staff if we want to keep them in our schools. So it's important. We did talk to our delegates, and we're going to continue to talk to them, but it's important that we keep them because they're doing a really good job to keep our kids safe. But also, the SROs are doing a great job of familiarizing children with police officers under non-strenuous conditions. The first time you meet a police officer is when they're arresting you. You're going to have a bad interaction with them. We're looking for them to meet these police officers in the schools under friendly conditions so that you can understand their job and they can understand you. And then hardware, technology, preventive maintenance, upkeep. As you can imagine, this stuff the technology is going through the roof every day, and it's hard to keep up as a school system. It's very expensive to keep up with the technology. So those are some things, and I know seemed like a meeting of short presentations, but I did a long one, I'm sorry. But I do have, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any that you may have. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, I had a few questions, so bear with
Sorry.
me.
Okay.
So the first one, as far as the human review, when students are typing things into Google Docs or what have you, are they able to read, the entire context of whatever that word is found in? Like they may be in art class and, writing about like a school shooting or things like that. How does that work?
What they do is the AI triggers keywords. Those keywords then kick it to human review. Then they go into that document and they read the substance of the document.
So they can read the entire.
Absolutely. Well, they can read, the entire anything on that document. Yes. A good example would be somebody talking about some sort of weapon, but they're doing a project on World War II. They would go in and say, okay, this student is obviously not talking about anything. There shouldn't be. They're talking about World War II. So they would then human review that and pass it to being okay. So yes.
Do our school counselors have that same software on their computers? Like if they're typing in something that's like a confidential report from a student?
They don't. This only monitors students. Now, school counselors sometimes do get the trigger from Lightspeed. I don't have that. I can't sit at my computer and watch what people are typing. What happens is Lightspeed, the company, looks at it, and then they let us know when somebody's typing something like that, because your confidentiality is important in that situation. So,
the second question that I had was about balancing, of course, all of the security measures and everything that we have in place, especially with the software and technology and all. There's a lot of importance behind that, especially as things are growing more and more chaotic over time. I'm just wanting to know what we're doing to balance, having strong security, but also still making a school feel like a school. I remember it was extreme culture shock for me when we did our school visits. And I had gone to Sutherland Elementary, and I remember seeing a few teachers that I had when I was there years ago, and I went to go say hi to them, and I went to go open the door, and I'm like, I can't get in. And it was just like, wait, this is something that I would have never thought would be the case, years down the road. I remember even when I was in high school, no one would have ever thought that, we'd have SSOs or, SROs in elementary schools. Like that was not even thought at that time. So how are we, balancing making schools still feel like schools and not TSA lives?
yeah, well, I think one of the main things is we had to come before you to even let you know some of the stuff we're doing. Some of the stuff, unless you are told, you wouldn't know what's going on. Now, the locked doors, that's kind of like a byproduct of the world we live in today. But we do have the security vestibules now. We do talk to our school staff, and all of our principals talk to them about, you're the first face they're going to see. You're the first person they're going to talk to. So you got to be extra inviting because, again, like you said, this is still school. So it's important that they greet people, that they talk to people, that we're not trying to keep people out of our school. We're just trying to keep people safe in our school. So if you come to the school and you have no malintent, then you're welcome in our school, no problem at all. But we have to make sure that we keep those people who want to do harm out. So I think there's a very good balance between that. You mentioned the SROs. The SROs at the elementary school level especially, they do a really good job of not just being police officers. They're going around, they're eating lunch with kids, they're high-fiving kids in the hall. You know, it takes a certain person to be an elementary SRO. It really does. I couldn't do it. I don't have that ability. Some people have that innate ability to talk to children and to make them feel at ease. And I think that's important. It's important for children to see somebody in a uniform standing before them that is not just a militaristic person. They are a, friendly person. And we talk to them a lot about that, that's what we're looking for in our elementary schools especially. In the high school and middle school too, but unfortunately they deal with a little more situational stuff that they have to deal with. But in the elementary schools, we're really looking for them to focus on building relationships with kids. They actually get into classrooms and teach the DARE program, where they have the opportunity to talk to kids and sit down and give them stuffed animals and little squishy balls and stuff like that. And they do a lot of that stuff. So we're working on it because it's important that they have those relationships so that they're not just police officers. They're also human beings that they can have interactions with. So
Great. Yeah, I had mentioned that part just because, like I said, at that time when I was a student, which was just like 5 years ago, that would have never.
Me too. They were never in my school either. Yeah.
But what initiated that question for me was seeing that we're doing wanding
Mhm.
at the middle school and high school,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I don't understand. I can't comprehend what the perception would be for a student when they're going to school and it's like, oh, I got wanded down today.
Yeah.
So people even have issues with that if you're trying to catch a train or the
Yeah.
subway. It's like
Yeah.
how are we balancing that?
Every time that we have a situation happen and it's on the news, we start to get phone calls. What are you doing to keep weapons out of our schools? I don't think we have a weapons problem in our school. I really don't. And now, can I say that there's never been a weapon in our school? I don't think anybody can say that definitively. But I think that it's important that we do what we can to make sure that people know that we're working to keep these weapons out of the school. And I don't mean people like the community, because the community is going to think what they want to think. It's the students. And I want students to feel safe when they walk in that school. And knowing that that's a possibility may be a deterrent for somebody who was thinking about maybe bringing something to school. Is there a way to make that not look like they're getting wanded? I don't think there is. I think that that's just, again, unfortunately, it's the world we live in, where people do things like that, and it happens in Chesterfield County, and everybody wonders, well, when is it going to happen in your school? And so we want to make sure that it doesn't. I don't think there's anything we can do to 100% keep it from happening, but I think we need to do all that we can without making it seem like a prison. And I would argue that our schools don't feel like that, but obviously wanding is not a great thing. I mean, I don't want to be wanded, but I understand the need to be wanded if it means safety for everybody is kind of, but I understand your point too, that it could be,
I think the flip side of that is just what you said. We do want to make sure we don't have weapons in school, but we also owe it to the students that they're confident that we are keeping weapons out.
That's
which
right.
would be, we'd have to either have some sort of devices that they would walk through. And we know the ones where you have to take your keys and your cell phone and put it in a basket and get it on the other side, those are not practical for schools. We got 1,300 kids coming through the door, and we need to get them in there within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can't do it with that kind of system. But the newer ones, you're saying, take a picture and someone could see the shape of a knife or a gun.
Well, the newer ones, the Open Gate, it can tell you not only what, it can tell you, there's a gun and knife on where on your body it is, things like that. So it's much more practical for getting people in. If you've ever gone to a concert or a professional sporting event, you walk through an Open Gate, almost guaranteed. And you probably didn't even know you walked through it. So they're that uninvasive. But again, they are very expensive. Now, not to say we wouldn't spend any amount of money to keep our children safe, but schools are difficult too because there's multiple points of entry in most schools. So,
I had one last question.
Yes, sir.
And so you had mentioned the evacuation policy procedure still being worked out, all the kinks and everything. What are the considerations that are being taken for disabled students? Because I do know there was a bill in the General Assembly to address evacuations for students that use wheelchairs.
Yep.
So, like, what's the thought behind that?
Well, we've already talked about that a little bit today. I had a meeting with the directors this morning, and we talked about, as far as transportation, any student who's going to be evacuated off-site is going to be on a bus. Whether they're going from the high school across the street to the stadium, that's their evacuation point, just across the street. And we did take into account that we're going to have multiple handicap buses for that reason, so that students with wheelchairs can also be evacuated. Most of our students with wheelchairs, and Ms. Peters may correct me, but most of them have aides, and they will be assisted on the evacuation. So they won't be. It's not like they're on their own. Now there are situations where you can't. They're upstairs and you can't use the elevator because a fire or something like that. And all of them have action plans to make sure that they are able to be safely evacuated in those cases.
And we also have teachers in wheelchairs
We do.
in some buildings.
Yeah, we do. And again, one thing about Dinwiddie that I love is everybody's so, helpful. Everybody's looking to help other people. It's not like, it's not every man for himself in Dinwiddie. Everybody's helping their neighbor and other people. So, but we did think about that. That's a great point because, evacuation means everybody. And it's some people, you have to have certain apparatuses to get them out. So we need to make sure we have those available.
I'd just like to go back to your question about, making certain that we're balancing the safety piece of it with not turning it into something that feels kind of clinical. And that's one of the things we've really wrestled with, because the minute something happens, immediately people start going, you need to put in metal detectors. And I'm not convinced of that, right? Because the minute you start putting in fixed structures, it does start to change the way of school looks, the way it feels, and that kind of thing. I will say that what we really try to focus on is it's just with any type of learning, kids, before you can get to anything, kids have got to feel safe. They got to feel safe, not only emotionally, but they got to feel safe physically. So I think a lot of the work's been done with the teachers and focusing on building relationships with kids, morning meeting, on responsive classrooms, on making certain those parts are in place too. So making certain that the adults in the building, even though they might be behind a locked door, that what takes place in that classroom is something that makes kids, they have a safe physical classroom, but the teachers are taking care of the emotional part too, because I think that's equally as important.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess not to belabor it,
Yeah.
but I think it's
Yeah.
an important discussion. So we have two students with us. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on
Yeah, that's a great
all of
idea.
these things?
Oh, I was actually going to end up speaking too when y'all were done, but I know you mentioned that this was a longer presentation, but honestly, I appreciate it because safety, of course, is important in the school, and I really think that it's important to stay updated with how we contribute to the safety in our schools as well. And I think that everything that is being done, everything that is in the works, looks really good. It's laid out, and it's always good to have a plan. Even though, of course, we always hope for nothing to happen, it's always good to have a plan. And I know that back when I was in Sutherland, we had Officer Hare, and he was always kind, and he always, was present. He had his dog. Everybody loved him. And, it's just, of course, creating that home space, because you are at school for a good chunk of your time. So it's like, at home, you want to feel safe and you want to know that you're good. And school is like that second home too, that you feel safe at. So I would definitely say that I appreciate this, and I appreciate that everything is being done and continuing to be done to contribute to our safety. And I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, because you brought up a good point, I get up here and talk about all these things, and I'm not the person that there's, I've had relationships with students, but, there's teachers in our schools that are forming relationships that are just as valuable as any apparatus we can put in a school to keep safe. And that's home feeling, knowing that when I walk into a classroom, that teacher has me and they're going to take care of me and they're going to, love me and, make sure that I'm safe. And so that's just as important. That's just not the side that I'm on right now. Right now I'm on the other side of it, dealing with it. So, but all those things go together.
And another thing that I had written down to ask them to say would be from the students' perspective when there are these threats. And recently we had threats coming from other kids in our building. How does that those confusing, agonizing days, how does it make you feel? And now, Jake, can you speak to that? Give you a chance.
Yeah, so the other day when we were getting those threats, I think it was third period, I was in English class when I found out about them. I hadn't heard about it all day, and apparently it was going on the day before and all that morning. People were hearing about it, and it hadn't gotten to me till third period, so it was kind of subtle. You didn't really expect something like that to be happening in school, that to hear about it that late in the day. But my teacher said that he was informed to tell us to just so we'd be aware. And it's good to know that, like what she said, it's good to have a plan for all that, and to know for that presentation that you gave. Thank you for giving all that, because kind of let me know what's going on in the school and how the plan is going out, and we can relay that to other students, and kind of just let them know what's going on. And that what she was saying about the home feeling, that's really good to know, because I mean, you just don't want to walk into school and get wanded first thing in the morning, 7 o'clock. I mean, nobody wants that.
No, I agree.
And honestly, I'm so sorry. Honestly, too, surprisingly, the students who still did come to school, like, regardless of everything that was going on, they were walking around talking about it's a regular day. Like, it's not, it's not intense. It doesn't feel like something so threatening is going on. And I feel like that is because of the actions that were taking place and how everything was done so quickly, because you come to school, you do your classes, you do your work, and it's a regular day. So,
I'm glad to hear that, because that was the goal, is to make it feel as homely as possible.
Mr. Walters, I want to say something, and then I have a question. I appreciate the fact that you don't run from controversy, if that's the right word, or shortcomings, because this is the third or fourth time now that you've stood in front of us and said, okay, we recognize this, and so we're addressing it this way. I think that's strong leadership, and so I really appreciate that about you, and we're lucky to have somebody like that.
Thank you.
Especially handling the security of our schools.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say it's not just me. We sat in a room full of 20 of us, and every one of us did the exact same thing. I'm just the one that gets to tell you about it. So.
I appreciate it. I really do. Question I have, and it kind of, we had a brief conversation about this in closed session, but the light speed, I'm fascinated by this.
Me too.
But one of the things about it is it makes us aware of things that students sometimes don't realize that we're aware of. So the question I have is the threat response plan. It's a must. We have to have it, but it can be triggered by things like a student that thinks they're being funny, or a student who just wants to get out of school. So I don't think the answer is to do away with the threat assessment and to do away with the plan that we have in place to respond to these things. But do we have anything that we are doing to kind of teach the kids and educate the kids on the seriousness of things like this? Like, if you make a joke like this, there are serious consequences regardless of what your intentions were. And then to that end, do we have a policy in place right now? I don't know if we do. I know a lot of times, as a school board, we have to handle discipline, and so it's kind of a discretion thing. But is there an official policy somewhere on paper that says if you do this, regardless of your intentions, this is going to happen, to sort of nip that in the bud so that we don't trigger this thing unnecessarily?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. That's kind of what fascinated me about Professor Dewey's report from UVA, was this determination between transient and substantive. If someone makes a casual or does something to be funny, our administrators still deal with it until they can know that it's not true. They deal with it, and then they go into that learning mode, the restorative mode. This is why you don't do that. This is why this isn't funny. These are the people that you could have affected by doing that. Now, to say that they don't punish them, it depends on, the nature of the threat or the nature of what they did or said. But I know that a number of times, just the other day, Mr. Garnes, I don't know if he's here, Mr. Garnes called me and said, hey, kid typed in my book bag, I have a GU, but didn't finish it. And so they went and talked to him, and I was going to put gum, but it doesn't matter, because the intent there, kids are clever, the intent there, and they counseled him on that and talked about why that is not funny. And also now that student knows that we're going to know immediately. you know, it's not going to be something that we're going to have to figure out 2 days from now. We're going to know before you leave that class.
So is there a way to make sure all the kids know that, I mean, you don't want to, I guess it's a catch-22 because, well, if we tell them we got this light speed thing and they're fully aware of it, then they find a different way to research stuff. But at the same time, you don't want a kid goofing off, not knowing that he's going to get
I look at it from the other side, Mr. Walker. I look at it, I don't care that they know we have it. I hope they know we have it, because if that keeps them from doing it, that's all I care about.
Right. So that's my thought, though. Should we be out front saying, hey, we're doing this, so that some of them that might not goof off because they know it? I guess that's...
I agree with him. We need to educate them. It's the same thing with the software we own to catch them plagiarizing on papers.
Absolutely.
We need to educate them that this is what we run your papers through, and this is what it picks up, and this is how we know you didn't quote. And the same thing with the light speed. We need to tell them often that we have this software, and you can't be playing in there. You know?
Well, and quite honestly, that's why I put it, first time I've ever put this in a public report like this, because I thought it was important that we talked about it, because again, we're looking to curb the behavior. It doesn't really matter what we, you know, as long as we do things within the law.
We're looking to
it's not a
prevent.
catch. Yeah, we're not looking to catch. We're looking to keep people safe.
And similarly, if they post something on social media, like, are we educating them to make them aware that that's going to trigger a process that's going to get you in serious trouble, even if you didn't mean it
Absolutely.
the way that it was received?
Because most kids say, "Oh, I didn't mean it," when you go and talk to them. But you know, the other thing about Lightspeed that I really like is children who are crying out in crisis, who are having emotional issues. It's very discreet too, because it doesn't just send out this blanket to the whole school. You know, you get that, and this child who's obviously in emotional distress we're not going to send the police down there.
Right.
We're going to send a guidance counselor down there. We're going to maybe call them up to the office. You know, it's going to be very discreet. We're not going to have a room full of officials in the threat assessment. We're going to have a guidance counselor, a school social worker, people who are trained to deal with these things, because it also is made for that. You know, because kids are very emotional, and they're going to put their emotions out. And a lot of them are going to do it behind social media or on a Google document, because that's all they know. Right. So it's important for that reason too. But I agree. I don't think we should hide it. I think we should be telling everybody that'll listen.
Good. Thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions?
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Yep.
Do we have citizen comments? We do not. Board member comments. Let's start with you, Dr. Pearson.
Thank you. I know that oftentimes we sit through these meetings and we start very early and they go on sometimes much later than right now. And they're always very informative, and they're always things that we have to know about. Like this safety thing is so very important. But I want to thank the parents who brought their children to present to us tonight, and especially their teachers who were able to convince those children to stand up in front of school board members and present their case for their school. That is, at each meeting, the highlight to me of the meeting is the children. So I know that they've already left, but administrators, if you're still here, please make sure that your staff knows how much we appreciate them bringing the students before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
Similarly, I appreciate the kids coming. It kind of takes some of the edge off of a serious business meeting sometimes. And I also want to acknowledge that while I'm super duper proud of the golf team, not surprised at all. Lucas Gordon played in a golf tournament that I host every year 2 years ago, and when the tournament was over, he stuck around to play an extra 18 holes with me, and he put me to shame. So not surprised that they did as well as they've done. But I did want to take a few moments during the board comments to just acknowledge a couple of things. First of all, while there aren't really teachers in the room right now, I do know that teachers watch these things online, and so I want to speak to that. Because I am aware that a lot of our teachers, especially at the elementary level, are really struggling right now, and I want them to be aware that there are people working on their behalf to help them as much as we can. I know this VLA stuff is, I've learned so many acronyms in the last month or two, and so much of it does not make sense to me
and I'm still trying to make sense of it. But I just want teachers to know that you have advocates here in this central office and on this school board that are working really hard to try to help you, because I know it's not easy. You guys have hard enough jobs before all this stuff started. And so we're meeting with delegates, we're doing what we can, and there are people in this building that are looking at ways to help you. So please hang on. And then I also want to say, I know that in our community, the Dinwiddie Middle School has been a location that for a couple of years has gotten a lot of attention that wasn't necessarily positive attention. But I am really excited about the direction of Dinwiddie Middle School, and having had the chance to walk through the school one day with Dr. Walker, I see just hope, like hope. There's a lot of good happening there, and so people need to hear that. Unfortunately, we always talk about the problems, and then we sit and mum when things are going well, and I think it's important to speak up when things are going well. And so I appreciate what's happening at the middle school, and I look forward to seeing more good stuff come out of there. So thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I'll start on a lighter note. I did want to learn, someone had mentioned, Pastor Walker, you can probably answer this for me, with the golf team that they had shot 80s. I didn't know what that meant. So if you want to take a second to just let me know what that was.
Well, golf,
So-
you want a low score.
Yeah.
So typically,
So a high, yeah.
a par is around 72, 70, 72. If the closer you get to par, the better. So if you go too much higher than 72, personally, I've only shot in the 80s a few dozen times in my life, and I was not 16 years old doing that. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
That's
I wanted to celebrate them that success, but I didn't know what it meant. And I figured I'd be an example and show that we should always be learning something.
That's
new.
great.
But yeah, another thing that I was thinking about, the last month, if not month and a half, has been particularly difficult and frustrating for me, because there's so many different life happenings and things like that. Full-time job, school board, I'm a political organizer, I'm a this, I'm a that. There's like so many hats that I wear and so many things that I love and so many people that I love. And so it can be a little frustrating at times. And with that being said, sometimes you also feel like you're on an island and you don't really have a support system. And so it's been really difficult. And for the last month and a half, I have had conversations with myself in a vacuum, of course, because when you're talking to yourself, it's just your thoughts in an echo chamber.
You don't answer? You don't answer
No,
yourself?
I answer
Oh, you
myself.
do?
That's the problem. I don't always give myself the best
Good advice. That's right. That's right.
But yeah, that being said, there were a good number of times within the last month and a half where I just went to give up on everything, give up on my service to the community, give up on my service to people outside of the community, give up on life itself, which is just me. I'm sharing that being vulnerable, right? Because I know that I'm not the only one in this room who has had those thoughts. And so, I want to make it, not seem like a shameful thing that you have to hide from other people. But it's been a very difficult time. And one of the things that I was thinking of during this meeting that was refreshing to myself, I guess one of the times where I did give myself good advice, was where I started to think, we are school board representatives, meaning that every time that I come to a school board meeting, if you look back on the election results, a little over 800 people who had voted for me, to be in this seat. Those people plus the rest of my district, elected for me to be in this seat to represent them. And the same for all of us up here. And so I had to ask myself, am I being a good representative, for the people who put me in this position of influence, this position of service? Because they can't be at the school board meetings themselves, right? And so, I have to ask myself, okay, am I coming here and serving their best interests? Am I working in the best interests of our teachers, of our students, and everyone that lives in my community or even in my district of the community? And I think that was refreshing. Even though it was challenging, it was a refreshing thought to, ask myself that question, because then I am reminded of what's most important, because it can be very belaboring and difficult when we have these closed session meetings and, having to see students that, we're having to discipline or we're having to vote to expel or suspend, or, I remember times I remember one student when we first got on the board, they had came in and showed us self-harm scars on their arms and things. I mean, this is stuff that no one should ever have to see or deal with. But knowing that we are doing our very best to work in the best interest of everyone, I think that's what keeps our record straight and keeps our thoughts sober, and all the work that we do. So I say all of that, one, because I just know that I would go home and just talk to myself about all of this. I figured I'd talk to everyone here because it would be to someone's benefit. But just keep us in your thoughts and prayers with all the work that we do up here. Just like we're praying for everyone here in the central office and everyone at all of our elementary schools and middle school and high school. Dinwiddie County is a prayerful community. It's one of the only communities that I know of that has a day of prayer, that had a community service I saw the other day. I mean, these are, I know you were there, Pastor Walker. I mean, these are things that are very unique to Dinwiddie County. So I think we need to depend on each other and lean on each other a little bit more going forward. And, when we do that, we'll really start to see a lot of things that we're expecting and hoping to see, in our school system. So, yeah, just keep us in prayer as much as, we pray for you. And as much as you all support us, I hope that we are also supporting you. So if there's anything that we can do or that I can do individually, I mean, please let us know, because we have that heart, where we want to serve you and serve the community.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I would like to make sure we recognize Mr. Bevel well. He's coached a lot of things in his lifetime for Dinwiddie. He coached track when we didn't have anybody to coach track. I think he still helps out with that. He took on the golf team and kind of kept that going, and that's particularly hard because we don't have a golf course in Dinwiddie, and they have to drive somewhere else to play. So it's a lot of times the kids themselves have to find time to practice, but he's just got such a positive outlook on life and translates that to the students that he works with in the classroom and also that he coaches. I want to mention that the October is the Bullying Awareness Month, and of course that relates to mental health. So mental health in general, promoting kindness, promoting people to help one another. And at the very basis of that is this effort that we're trying to make sure that the teachers make connections with the kids. And we need to make connections with our teachers and with our fellow staffs because all of that helps everything to run a little bit smoother if we can know one another well and help prevent some of the mental health problems as well as the bullying awareness. I have deep concerns about the resource officer grants running out, and Mr. Walker pointed out to us that the legislature did that the day after a school shooting, which was just horrifying. And so if you know representatives, if you're willing to send an email to your representative to talk to them about, making sure that we renew, it's very important. And the schools that have a lot, we have 7 schools. We now have one in every school, and I'm so happy about that. But I would really hate to go backwards and to lose them. And they do such a great job. And the other concern is the same thing Mr. Walker talked about, the VLA and the reading. It is a good program. It is. I'm happy we're going back to teaching with phonics, but we've just got so many new things going in at one time, which all came down from above. And that's what's frustrated many of our teachers, especially the elementary teachers. We're aware, we're working, trying to get some support for you, some help for you. And I agree with what Mr. Walker said. We need you to hang in there and have some faith, and we're going to be doing the best we can on our end as well. Student reps. Amani, you want to go first?
I definitely do want to speak to mental health because it is a good thing and it's an important thing as well. And of course, I agree with life is always happening. There's always something going on. There's always something to do. But one thing that I definitely have been learning, like the older I get and the more I grow, is that sometimes we get caught up in I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, but what do you have to do for yourself? And I feel like that's something that's very important because of course you have tasks, life happens, life goes by, and there's stuff you need to do, but you also need to make sure that you are okay and you know that you are in the right place to do the things you need to do, because you can't perform at 100% if you're not at 100% either. So I definitely think that it's important, and I definitely think that it's also important for others as well. You know, you may want things done at a certain time, or things need to get done at a certain time, and you may depend on certain people to do those things, but sometimes you want to take that moment to ask, wait, are you okay? Do you need something? You know, what's going on in your life? Do you need a moment? And I definitely think that, you know, we all, of course, are continuing to grow at any age, you know, and I just think that that's a big thing to always be aware of and be mindful of. But on a lighter note, I definitely, of course, enjoyed the highlights from Sunnyside as well. Those are something that I look forward to monthly, seeing the elementary schools, because they are also intelligent at such a young age, and they're also confident as well coming up here and speaking, because it can be nerve-wracking, but they always do a great job. And then, of course, congratulations to the golf team as well, because it is always good to break milestones, and it is always good to set the bar. So we are, and I know we definitely will be looking out for them next year to see all of the other accomplishments and new things that they do. So, great meeting.
Thank you. Jake?
Yeah, so I'd like to start with also recognizing the golf team, because I know every single one of those seniors, and I play baseball with 3 of them, so I know how hard they work. And just to know that they don't even have a golf course, they have to drive pretty little ways to go practice every day after school. I know Lucas, for example, he practices every day after school. He's really involved in golf, and he loves to do that. He wants to go to college for that, so it's great to see that they were getting recognized for their efforts. Also, it's good to hear that attendance is up, because you have to be in school to be able to learn, so that's
Yes.
wonderful to be able to see that. What else we got? Sunnyside, that was great to be able to see those kids coming up here and speaking in front of a lot of people, because I don't think I could have done that when I was their age. So that's great to see that teachers are teaching them how to speak in front of people and be respectful to those. And Sunnyside is the best side. You know, I went there, so I know. And last thing I have is that it's great that we're recognizing school lunches next week, because it's really beneficial to many students to be able to have that. And we need to realize how blessed we are to have that to offer to students, because many people don't just have food at home to bring to school. So I'd like to recognize that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Weston?
Wow. I mean, maybe you should start going in front of
When
them.
you
I want to
wanna
go in front of,
first.
speak before them and not after them, because I'm quite certain that they're 40-year-olds really in these teenage bodies. So, it's so much. I think, this is an amazing community that truly is, we are very blessed. It's a kind community. It is a prayerful community. It is a community that leans in at all times. And, it really is a great place for us all to be. I just want to say to your comments, thank you. I think that so often, and I sometimes say, we wear costumes every single day. That's what I call them. I said, I'm in my costume today. I think we forget that behind our costumes are people. And they're people with stories that you don't ever get to see, because what you see is all put together, right? So we think, well, that person's got it because they're all put together, but everybody's got that. Everybody's got some story, some kind of life going on, right? And I think sometimes if we were kind of step back from that and just be thoughtful in those moments, instead of those moments when we say, what's wrong with you, instead of what happened to you. I just finished reading a book that was entitled that. So now I'm trying to think like that, to think what happened in this situation, what happened to that student, not what's wrong with that student, right? Because there's always a backstory that brings us to that moment. There's always a backstory for grown people that can bring us to the moment, why people believe what they think. And so I think, just as a community that truly loves one another, and we do care about each other, just trying to be mindful as we move into this month of kindness, mindful that everybody's got a backstory. There's always a story behind each person. So thank you for reminding us of that. And then I would just like to say we do have a lot of great things that are going on this month. I know we have Read for the Record Day. I saw we've got the new book out. This is homecoming in a couple weeks, so that's always exciting to be able to come out for homecoming. I'm sure everybody can't wait to see all those pictures and everything with homecoming. And then I understand we're playing football on Halloween night, which is interesting, but Mr. Tortorese has planned a trunk or treat. And I understand that they've got over 20 some cars that are going to be doing, and Natanya's informed me that we're going in costumes, like real costumes to this. So I cannot wait for that to be a part of that. And then finally, just got a note from Mr. Brown to remind us that we had 2 school board members with birthdays this week. So if we really could end on a light note and we could sing happy birthday to Dr. Pearson and Miss Pittman, this is our birthday week. So if you could join me, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear friends, happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's been a very productive meeting. We enjoyed. We're always looking for positive things. We also look at what we need to change. I think we have to be honest with ourselves when we look at what our shortcomings are. What do we do well, and what do we need to fix? And I think we have hit upon several of those during this meeting. So we appreciate your attendance, and hearing no objections, we will be adjourned. Thank you.